Hello, Aroma Thyme team member. Welcome to Aroma Thyme Bistro. These are our commandments, our 25 or 23 commandments of Aroma Thyme. These are the basic things you need to know no matter what job you do at Aroma Thyme. So here we go. Commandment number 1, no perfume, no piercings other than the ear, no cologne. A lot of our guests that come to us have sensitivities to perfume, and there's nothing worse than having a waiter or waitress with offensive cologne and or perfume on, just like when you get into an elevator. So please refrain from any type of scented things that a guest can react to. Follow the dress code. Blue jeans, no holes in the jeans, presentable jeans, black shoes, black shirt, apron when serving tables, and no visible tattoos. Number 3, know our water selections. We have ionized water, we have tap water that's infused with lemon, and we also have bottled sparkling water. Number 4, everyone is responsible for allergies. So if a guest says to you, I'm allergic to gluten, or I'm celiac, which is the same thing by the way, or I can't have this, I can't have that, I have dietary restrictions, make sure no matter what position you are, you immediately tell their server, and that the server, and if you are the server, that you're taking care of it with the chef in the kitchen. A lot of people come to Aroma Thyme because we are actually very conscious of allergies, allergen foods, and we're able to avoid those. So that's one of the big draws for Aroma Thyme. Number 5, no smoking, no cell phones, no chewing gum during service. We never want to see you have gum in your mouth, especially in front of customers. We don't want to see you on your cell phone, and we don't want you outside smoking during your shift because we don't want a guest to smell cigarette, or nor do we want a guest to see you outside smoking. Number 6, sanitation. No touching your hair, touching your face, picking up food with your hands, things like that. Something that you wouldn't want done to your food. But there's nothing worse than watching a waitstaff scratch their head and then go to take food or something. So be conscious of all the actions that you do because you are in the spotlight with the guests. Do not drink in front of guests. Don't drink and don't eat in front of guests. That is number 7. So if you're at the bar and you have a water, we're not saying don't drink or eat during your shift, but don't walk around drinking in front of a guest. That's the last thing a guest wants to see is you drinking, eating. So just turn your back to the guest, and if you're at the corner by the coffee station, or if you're in the back drying glasses, that's perfectly fine back there to have something on the shelf. But again, don't ever face a guest with a glass and a straw or walk around. Number 8, do not point. A lot of people consider pointing rude. So try to practice giving directions without pointing. So for example, if somebody says to you, where's the bathroom? You would simply say, to the back of the restaurant, you're the second door on the left. To the back of the restaurant, you're the first door on the left. Those are the male and female bathrooms. If somebody wants directions to the bank, you walk out the front door and you go down 2 blocks and there's 3 banks on the street corner there. How do I get the Pine Bush? Well, you'd go out our front door, and that's Route 52, Canal Street. And if you take a right on there, that is 52, which will take you right to Pine Bush. So practice giving directions without pointing. And especially when you reference a table to another staff member, you never want to point and say, oh, that table over there needs water, that table needs bread, while you're pointing at them. Guests do find that offensive. I find that offensive. Number 8, make sure the bread is fresh and warm every single time. Nobody likes stale bread. The bread is such a pivotal point in a restaurant, which makes a restaurant first impression. Well, the bread makes a good first impression. So make sure the bread is nice and warm and when it goes out, and know what the bread is. Know what the bread is and know what the bean dip is, so you can actually wow the guest. Number 10, greet but don't seat. Okay, without looking into the reservation or knowing the reservation book. So you never want to just greet somebody and not understand if there's other tables coming in, what we need to fulfill as far as reservations. One of the biggest mistakes you could do is greet somebody at the door and say, follow me, and sit them down at a table that another guest either requested, or another guest that guest needs to sit at, or that a guest, it's that reservation has. So that's the last thing you want to do. So just say, hi, how are you? I'll be right with you. Do you have a reservation tonight? Something like that. And then refer to a senior staff member before you actually seat somebody. Number 11, know the hours of operation, our address, and our phone number. When people call for reservations, some of them might need our address. Our address is 165 Canal Street. Know our phone number, 647-3000. Those are just simple things that you should know. Number 12, know the proper way to answer the phone. Hello, this is Aroma Thyme Bistro. This is Marcus. How may I help you? Just don't say hello, and just don't sit there and let the phone ring and ring and ring. We like to answer the phone within 3 rings. In most cases, we've answered the phone within 1 or 2 rings. So company policy is no more than 3 rings. We don't want to keep our guests waiting. So, hi, this is Marcus. Hi, this is Aroma Thyme Bistro. This is Marcus. How may I help you? Number 13, keep the guest's interaction to a minimum unless they engage in conversation. Especially when you first start out at Aroma Thyme. If a guest is asking you how long you've been here, or where you're from, or if you're going to college and things like that, that's one thing. But just don't go to a table and start just talking away, especially if the guest is not ready for that. Now, guests do love to talk to our staff because a lot of guests are repeats, and since a lot of our staff have been with us a long time, they have formed a personal connection with our guests. So our guests will get friendly, but when you first start out, don't confuse other staff members and guests getting friendly, and you try to do the same thing, okay? It's something that guests will open up to you when you have been here a while, or if you have a good personality and you're friendly, they will want probably to talk to you a little more, certain guests. Number 14, use a silverware plate when guests need replacement silverware. So when you walk to a table, never walk around with a fork in your hand or a knife in your hand. We have a nice plate that has a napkin on it, and that's the plate you'd go around with a fork and knife and spoon. Everything's lined up on there. So for example, if you got to a table and with a fork, then all of a sudden somebody else at the table said, well, I need a fork too, or I could use a spoon, to walk back and forth doesn't make sense. But if you walked with that plate that has a little bit of every silverware on it, then you can actually, it's like a waiter tray, a server tray. You can then actually don't have to make trips back and forth, and it looks professional. Because really, as a guest, I know that I don't want to see somebody walking around with their hands on my silverware, right? Because you're not sure where they're putting their hands on. Obviously, it's common sense to put it on the stem, but it's just more professional to deliver it that way. And number 15, be visible on the floor. Don't hang out in the kitchen. There's guests constantly need things, and you have to have your blinders off. So when you walk onto the floor and you're on the floor, just make sure you're looking around at everything, because people will sit there and try to raise their hand at something, and there's nothing more frustrating than a guest when you walk by a guest and they're trying to flag you down and you don't see them because you're laser focused on going to a table past them. So just make sure you span the room, make sure you don't get caught in the kitchen. If you have nothing to do, then it's a good idea just to walk around and look like you're busy, even if you're out there just moving a glass or a silverware around on an empty table, just touching it up, just so the guests can see you and see that something's active. Some nights we're very, very slow. Unfortunately, we're not slow that often, but there are nights where it is slow in the restaurant. So you want to present that you're busy, or that you're attentive, or you're alert to doing something, as opposed to sitting there, slooping down at the end of the bar, or getting stuck in the kitchen, so a guest can't have proper service. Okay, number 16. Know where our bread is from. It's from Bread Alone. Know what our bean dip is. White beans, rosemary, thyme, olive oil, and sea salt. And that it's gluten, and that our dip is gluten-free. Our dip is vegan, vegetarian. But we also have butter available too for guests. So just make sure you know what the bread is when you serve it. If somebody is gluten-free, make sure you know what the poppadoms, procedure on poppadoms are. Number 17, no leaning or sitting. Find something to do when the restaurant is slow. There's always something to do, something always to dust, something always a drawer to clean, bottles of liquor to be polished. There's always something to be done, but when it is slow, no leaning. Make sure guests don't see you being bored and not being non-productive. Number 8, no excessive chatter on the floor. That means when the staff, don't talk amongst each other where guests can hear you. We have gotten complaints on this in the past where 2 or 3 staff members are at the end of the bar. They're talking about what happened last night, and the guest at the bar might hear that. The guest doesn't want to hear that. The guest is not here. They're not coming to the restaurant to hear about our staff problems or what our staff did last night. Make sure you keep personal chatter to a minimum, and that it's not loud so guests can hear it. And if there is somebody else at the bar right there, make sure there's no talking about that whatsoever. Number 19, wait until everybody's finished at the table before clearing their entree dishes, okay, or their appetizer dishes. It's considered, a lot of appetizers, sometimes people are going to share, so they'll push a plate off and you can grab that. But entrees typically aren't shared. Entrees 1 per person. Well, if you have a 4-top and one person's done eating and their plate's in front of them, don't grab their plate away, because it feels like some people feel like they're getting rushed. And some people find it offensive that you would take one person's plate away because now the other people feel like they're now being rushed, and it's considered rude service. Now, if somebody has pushed their plate off to the side, then it means I don't want it there anymore and I'm pushing it off to the side. Then you can grab the plate. But never just because one person's done at a table, just start taking dishes off of that table, especially when it comes to entrees. Number 20, this one's common sense. Be to work on time. Be to work on time. Some people like to say, well, I need to eat something, I need to get something to drink, or I need to change, and they come in if their shift starts at 4, make sure you're ready and all that's taken care of by 4 o'clock. Don't punch in at 4 and then go change and then go get something to eat and something to drink. Make sure if your schedule says 4 or 3 o'clock or 11 a.m. that you're ready to work at that specific time. We'll never, ever get upset if you're 5 or 10 minutes early. Trust us, we won't get upset at all. So, in fact, it makes a great impression to be early for every shift. Number 21, clearing everything off the table after the entrees. I mean clearing mostly everything off. Leave the napkins on, leave the cleaner silverware, but if there's any silverware that they've used, remove that. Remove salt and pepper. Remove empty wine glasses, remove the bread basket. There's nothing worse than a guest getting dessert served to them and the bread basket or the salt and pepper are still on the table. All that excess clutter can be removed. So my suggestion or our policy is once you drop dessert menus, all that should be gone. Now there might be one person still that has that still is eating and somebody wants to see a dessert menu, which is fine. You can't take everything off the table, but you have to use a little common sense at this. And especially now, a lot of guests, even if they ask for their check and say, I'm not getting dessert, doesn't still mean you can still clear the table properly. They don't need salt and pepper down and a bread basket down for them getting their them getting their check. All that can be clear so the table's presentable. And just because a check gets delivered to a guest doesn't mean that service stops. Some people like to pay and sit around and lounge, talk to people they haven't seen in a while, keep listening to jazz or live music. So they might want to keep having water. They might want coffee in 15 or 20 minutes. So keep in contact with a guest even after they've paid and they're still sitting around. But most important, I'm going to stress this, make sure if they're getting their check, make sure unless they're getting their check and they're still eating in the middle of eating. Some people say, I'm in a hurry, I need my check now, let me take care of it, and I'm still eating. But if the guest is done eating, they've asked for their check, or you're going on to dessert, make sure salt and pepper is off, make sure the bread is off, and empty wine glasses, or empty cocktail glasses. That also serves as another purpose, because when I walk into the floor, or Jamie walks on the floor, or anybody else, any other waitstaff, they can go and look and say, oh, look at table 109. There's salt and pepper shakers off. That must mean they're done with eating, done eating entrees, they're done with their food. If the salt and pepper shakers are still on the table, then this is like a sign language to other staff members saying, hey, this table still needs more food. So I need to go check the kitchen for more food. So it serves as a dual purpose to clear the clutter off the table and as a sign language to other staff members that, hey, this is the next progression. All sorts of things are sign language. So when you first set somebody down, they have a menu down, it means to the other staff, well, hey, they haven't ordered yet because their menus are still there. So after somebody orders, then you remove their menus unless they say, well, I want to keep one menu. So now anybody can look at the table and say, okay, there's no menus, they must have placed their order. So there's certain sequences that you need to go through, and the salt and pepper is a sequence and a sign language to other staff members. It's a way to communicate a little better, besides being proper service. Number 22, do your absolute best to meet customers' needs, okay? Customers do not like no, and that's number 23. Do not like to say no. So for example, now our bar is tricky because our bar has lots of different small brands. We don't have the big brands like Jack Daniels, Absolute, Grey Goose, Bacardi, Kettle One, Belvedere. We don't have those big brands. So guests might ask you, I'll have a Jack and Coke. Instead of saying, no, I don't have that, and walking away, you're going to simply say, well, I don't exactly have Jack because we support small brands. I do have Pritchard's Tennessee Whiskey. I do have this whiskey. I have something else that we have as a substitute for it. So you just never want to say no to a guest without really explaining why, because you will have to say no to a guest a lot when they are asking for these big brands of alcohol. And it's a simple thing. We support small, independent distilleries locally and abroad from wherever they're at. We want to contribute to a real company, to a real community, to real employees, to real owners. And those big companies don't have that. They have a big infrastructure where their CEOs making millions and millions of dollars, and they just don't honor the communities that they work out of. So please try not to say no. If you have to say no, give the guests an alternative. Let them know why specifically we don't have something. Like if they're going to ask for French fries, just don't say no. We don't have a fryer. Say, I'm sorry, we don't do French fries. We don't have a fryer, but I can get them to put some oil in a pan for you and crisp up some of our roasted potatoes. It won't exactly be a French fry, but it'll be something that's a crispy potato. That'll be the closest thing we can do. So see, it's all in the wording and how you want to accommodate the guests. A guest doesn't like to be told no. And for a guest, they won't understand, well, why can't I have French fries here? Why can't I? But now once you explain we don't have a fryer, now it makes more sense. And now you can explain, well, I can do something similar. Let me have the staff basically go out of their way to do something for you. Now the guest feels special. If somebody asks for a newspaper, which people don't ask for newspapers anymore, but when we first opened, people would say, hey, is there a newspaper around? And we never got the newspaper delivered to Aroma Thyme, so we'd actually run down to the store and get a newspaper. But we just didn't get one newspaper for them. We got 2 or 3, whatever was left on the rack for the day, whether it was a local Times Herald Record, Kingston Freeman. We would buy 2 or so because then they could see, well, for the extra 50 cents or $1 at the time, it's nothing to impress a guest for that extra $1. So always try to impress the guest. Now by this time, or close to this time, you should be reading or listening to a book called Raving Fans. Raving Fans is a fantastic book all about customer service and creating a raving fan, because nowadays, good service isn't good enough. People want to talk and tell a lot of people about how good and how great you are. And Raving Fans has 3 great stories in there, how to go above and beyond. So you have to relate Raving Fans to our commandments and to our guests, and how we can make their experience that much better. If a guest leaves their to-go food sitting at the table, run it out after them, okay? Run it out after them if you can. Those small things like that make a huge difference. Opening the door for a guest, letting a guest have the right of way. If you're walking with dirty dishes or food, or if you're just walking and a guest is there, let the guest go first. Step aside and let the guest go. They are our guests here. They are the ones who are paying your salary. They're the ones that are paying your wage here. So because without them, we wouldn't be here. So always keep the guest in mind first. If you have any questions, please address myself, Marcus, or Jamie, or any of our senior staff members here at Aroma Thyme. Everybody is very knowledgeable on staff and very willing to help. And thanks for watching this.